Yeah, it's a great question. I think the context is what we're getting here is very similar to something we saw in the first term. During the first term, there were 25% tariffs on steel imports coming from everywhere in the world. But Mexico and Canada in particular were upset by this because they were the close trading partners. And you might remember in 2019, they were trying to create a new NAFTA. And as a part of getting the new NAFTA agreed, the United States agreed with Mexico that they would lift the 25% tariffs in exchange for an agreement that Mexico would stop imports of exceeding a certain level, like a historical level. Well, that's what we're seeing again here. They're getting close to finalizing terms between Mexico and the United States right now to lift that 50% tariff in exchange for Mexico agreeing that they won't import more than a certain level. One of the things we're hearing, though, is that that level that they're not supposed to exceed is actually going to be higher than what the 2019 number was. So that's a real key point here.
What is the U.S.? Do we know what the U.S. is doing in response, or how the U.S. is getting Mexico to agree to a deal such as this?
I mean, one of the things that they're putting out there is just listen, okay, we're going to take this off, but we're going to have you agree essentially to a quota, right? And that essentially puts the level of imports that can come into the United States. And I think that's really the trade-off here. So yes, we'll lift the tariff, but hey, you can't go above historical numbers that we've been seeing out of Mexico into the United States over a certain period.
We saw investor response to this, Joe, in late trading after your reporting. Cleveland Cliffs dropped more than 7%. Nucor fell more than 4%. U.S. steel stocks overall declined. The peso trimmed losses after you and the team were the first to report on the advanced deal talks. What are the implications for American steel companies?
Yeah, I think the American steel companies wouldn't be too happy about this one. I mean, obviously, lifting of the tariff is one thing, but increasing that import level, that so-called quota, if you will, it's not actually a quota, it's just an agreed upon level. That I think is going to be something that's very striking to executives across the various steelmaker companies right now, because if you were expecting at some point maybe the tariff will be lifted, you might have been expecting that the quota, the threshold, would still be at that 2019 level. That's something you've seen over the past 6 years. So that idea that that might come up, I think that's a bit of what we're seeing in the reaction of Cleveland Cliffs and Nucor Corporation and after-hours trading today.
All right, so Joe, I feel like my head is spinning with tariffs.
Imagine how Joe feels.
Well, this is why we lean on you. So, step forward. This is good. Like, I don't know. It's obviously not for some of the U.S. steel players as we're seeing their share price go lower, but I'm trying to kind of, I don't know. Resolution is always good, but it depends on what you
listen,
kind of get resolved.
Here's how I break it down. Seemingly a net positive for Mexico. And listen, Howard Lutnick, who is leading the negotiations on this deal, could end up having a deal that he can take back to the president of the United States, right? I mean, one of the things is the president wants deals, and this is one he'd be able to take back to him. Sure, maybe the steelmakers won't be too happy about this, but there's another way of looking at it. Listen, Mexico hasn't had tariffs for a number of years. They got slapped back on when the president said he'd be putting tariffs back on Canada and Mexico back in February. So in a way, we're kind of reverting back to the way things have gone, basically for the past 4 to 6 years.